People, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream and a really disappointing afternoon/evening at Stamford Bridge. The wait still goes on. Still no win against Man United in the Premier League since November the 5th, 2017. We were within 5 minutes of getting the job done, but truth be told, this was an awful game of football. One of the worst I think I've watched in a long time. Both sides really lacking quality. Chelsea really poor, particularly in that first half. The system was completely wrong. The setup was wrong from the start, but fair play to Potter. He actually had the bollocks to make a big call and change it 35 minutes. And that did make a difference. We did look a little bit better, but we didn't deserve anything from the game. The point was a fair result on balance, but then having got so close to having the 3 points to then lose it in those circumstances right at the end and once again kind of fail to see a game out when in a winning position, particularly in a big game. You know, you have to question that mentality again. You know, different coach, but it seems that the same mentality of not being able to hold on to a lead is kind of crept in there. We should have been able to see that out from that point. We really should have done. We defended really well up to that point, kept them to minimal chances. They did have the better opportunities, but just a really frustrating afternoon. But more annoying is the fact that it was a game that just lacked so much quality, despite having so many good players on the pitch. It was an awful game of football. I mean, George, are you more disappointed with the fact that we threw it away? Or are you more disappointed with how shit we were?
It's a combination of both, I'd probably say. It was. I completely share your views. I think that was one of the worst games I've ever seen from in terms of a hyped up fixture against a so-called big club. At home, you expected great atmosphere. The atmosphere was non-existent, but that's because the fans had nothing to thrive off. No intensity on the ball or off the ball. Hardly any chances created. Just the quality of passing and giving away needless possession. With no side really taking the incentive to try and push for a winner throughout the game. And I think it was summed up all in the substitutions made by Manchester United themselves. I mean, a team of that stature to then take off all their attacking players when it's 0-0 and bring on players like McTominay, Fred and the like. I think it just sums up that they were quite happy to take a point. Frustrating that the fact that it's probably a better result for them.
It's a much better result for them. You saw the celebrations from them at the end. It's like they'd won the fucking Premier League with those celebrations. It's a way better result for them than it is for us, for sure. But yeah, I'm just surprised it lacks so much quality. I don't know what it is about us playing Man United, but we just cannot seem to beat them in the Premier League. I don't know what happens to us when we play against them, but we always seem to really struggle. And there's always certain teams that you play against that you struggle against. And I think United is our bogey team. We just, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter how shit they are, it doesn't matter how well we're playing, we can never seem to get the job done against them. We were within minutes of getting it done. And they were pumping balls into the box and we just didn't deal with it. All right, fair play. It's a very good header from Casemiro. It is. But and Kepa almost gets it out. And I'm seeing people saying that, our Mendy saves that. Behave. Honestly, I have a day off. Seriously. I mean, he doesn't. The fact Kepa has basically made sure we didn't lose the last two games. He's been outperforming himself, for week in, week out. And to say that Mendy would have saved that is utter nonsense. It was utter bollocks. So anyone that's saying that is nonsense. I mean, he almost gets there anyway, and people are questioning his positioning. You always look to cover that near post first anyway. So I just don't get that. I really don't get that. And it goes, it's his fault because he wasn't born taller. Come on.
I don't. I completely agree. I would say in an isolated incident. I mean, if that's just talking about the shot, I think Mendy does save it just because of his size. But it doesn't. I'm not going on this bandwagon of Kepa shouldn't be in goal and Kepa's made a mistake. That's absolutely not.
But then he's kept us in the game anyway because he makes a great save from Rashford and then he does a good save from Anthony as well. So I mean,
look, it's a great save from the shot itself, really, isn't it?
Well, exactly. It is. It's just frustrating that they're chucking McTominay up that. I mean, Casemiro's not even that tall. How is he winning a header like that in the box? How is he winning a header like that in the box? It just shouldn't be happening. But let me just get to a few things in the chat before we go any further. What's this? No one can be shocked by the late equaliser. New coach. Yeah, I mean, it's annoying. You just shouldn't be conceding equalisers like that. We'll get into Raheem Sterling later. I thought he was poor again today. And I think he's been poor for a while now. I would also agree with that. I do actually think under Tuchel we'd lose that game because I don't think he would have. I don't want to say he hasn't got the bollocks, but he wouldn't have made that sub that that Potter made after 35 minutes. He wouldn't have done. He would have waited till at least half time, but more likely 60 minutes. Again, another game that goes by without Reece James, and another game that we really struggled in. That for me is the biggest concern, is the fact that the games without Reece James we have really struggled. Draw was expected. To be fair, we were saying before the game, mate, that it's most likely to be a draw. This is the most drawn fixture in Premier League history. They were saying 26 draws in this fixture. So, safe money on a. I have to disagree with this. I don't think we can complain with the setup before the game. Obviously, we didn't realise that Koulibaly picked up a slight knock. The tactics weren't working, and he changed it after 35 minutes. That's brave. That's brave to switch things up after 35 minutes. It's annoying how he played like that. We didn't deserve to win that game, no. But it's one of those things. What else have we got? I agree with this, that for how we played, a draw was a good result for us. But I just want to caveat that with the fact that because we were so close to the win, a draw now feels really fucking annoying, because we should have won that game given how it played out. But then in the bigger picture, we didn't really deserve to win that game at all. So that's kind of the issue. But in terms of the setup, George, obviously it didn't work out at all for the first half an hour. But did you have any issues with the setup? I mean, Koulibaly not available. We weren't expecting that beforehand, but obviously picked up a slight knock to his knee towards the end of the Brentford game. Nothing too serious, Potter was saying, but obviously this game was too soon for him. Cucurella comes in. That was a little bit of alarm bells for me. Cucurella and Chilwell down that left-hand side, because the last time we saw that at Villa, it was absolutely awful, and Cucurella got hooked at half-time. Cucurella then gets hooked after 35 minutes. Do you think that's smart management from Potter in terms of bold to make a change after 35 minutes, but taking off Cucurella, perhaps a player that he knows a lot better? Do you think that's smart management from him? Good management in terms of selecting him? Or do you think he selected him because he had to select him? He wasn't going to take off Silva or Chalobah. But do you get what I'm saying in terms of the fact he knows the player really well? It might be a bit easier for him to kind of explain it to Cucurella rather than one of the guys that he doesn't know so well.
Well, I think he's been forced in the position to play him, and for whatever reason in that game, it's not panned out. So I think he's probably told him in advance, if this is our contingency plan. If things don't go well, you'll probably be the first off. And I think it is smart management, and I think it's, like you said, brave management. The fact that he's willing to change it, I totally agree. I think Tuchel doesn't make that change. He would have been a bit more stubborn and tried to see it out and see if anything comes of it. But no, I didn't have any problems with the lineup, to be honest with you. I was just more of the same as many Chelsea fans would have been, more worried about the fact that we haven't got Reece James. We haven't got maybe someone like I said to you, someone like I know Kante's been injured, but someone like him who just gives a little bit more energy in the middle of the park. I was surprised that Cover wasn't starting. That was my only one, because I didn't question the Aubameyang one, because I thought, even though we saw a bit of Brozier the other night, he wants more minutes. But again, you'd probably go with Aubameyang in his recent form, and for a big game like this. So no, I didn't have any questions really about the lineup, but I just, like someone said in the comments there, I just bit surprised at how we've approached that game at Stamford Bridge against a big side. I haven't seen that before really from us. I know you and I a couple of seasons ago were at the Chelsea City game, and that was a bit of
I think that was last season.
Last season, maybe it
wasn't it? Right at the start of the season, wasn't it? We got played off the park.
Yeah, and again, it just kind of the atmosphere was a bit dead because they controlled it so well, and it was similar today. I mean, United again didn't play particularly well, but they certainly controlled the early stages of the game and had the better first half. And just the whole spectacle of it. I know they get carried away on Sky Sports because they're trying to sell it, but it was for a big clash, for two teams who are very close to each other on the table and needed to make a statement. It was hugely disappointing, I have to say.
It was. I mean, do you agree with this perhaps the context that players shouldn't be at the moment perhaps getting picked on their reputation and because of what their name is? Because for me, I feel like, I know it was never going to happen. I think this is part of the problem, but Brozier and Pulisic for me probably should have started today. I really believe that. Aubameyang's not been in good form, but he's going to get picked for this game because of who he is, and he's a big game player, or has been throughout his career. Sterling was always going to be playing this game, when in reality his form doesn't really merit him starting at the moment. It doesn't. I know it's hard to make those big calls, because if you put Brozier and Pulisic in and you lose, the first thing is you get battered. Oh, why weren't you starting? Why weren't you starting your kind of experienced pros, your big name players like Aubameyang, Sterling, and whatnot? I get it, but do you think Potter, perhaps for me, a slight criticism maybe is that he needs to start picking players that deserve to play rather than picking them based on their reputation?
Yeah, but I don't think that's a Graham Potter thing. I think that's
No.
a manager you see it a lot of times at big clubs where he's probably thinking that, but do you really have the bollocks to go for that? Because like you said, if it goes wrong, the first thing people are going to say is, why aren't you starting someone who's signed for big money in Raheem Sterling? And it's a huge call to make when you've got, he must be constantly thinking over his shoulder. Yes, he wants to do the best that he can for the club, and yes, he's not going to compromise his principles. But ultimately, you are at a big club. You are, quite literally, a bad month away from possibly getting the sack. I mean, that is the reality of the position. So you have to weigh it up with, yes, you want to play how you want to play, but you've also got to, think about maybe head-to-heads against certain teams, how they shape up, maybe even goals against certain teams. I mean, I know you came up with a stat that Sterling hasn't scored against Manchester United.
Yep, 24 appearances now, including today, hasn't scored a single goal against them.
But then I think we both agree that still, regardless of his form, he's still probably our most creative outlet that we've got at the moment, other than Reece James, who's not available. So can you really drop? He was terrible tonight. He was terrible. But have we got any other options? We're not Man City. We haven't got like a Mahrez, a Foden, all the rest of it to bring on. We've got Sterling and perhaps.
But do you think that Pulisic should now? I'm not saying that Christian Pulisic's a better player than Raheem Sterling, but no. He's not. But right now, surely Pulisic is not going to be doing any worse than Sterling's going to be doing. And surely someone like Pulisic perhaps deserves a run of games in the side like Sterling's getting, because let's be honest, Sterling's been terrible pretty much the last month, really. He's been awful. He's not really offered anything. He's not creating anything. He's not scored. It's a problem. But I know Potter's literally just come in. He's been here, for 6-7 games, hardly any time at all. It's not his squad, it's not his players or whatever. He's still getting his feet under the table and whatnot. But it's concerning, isn't it, that there's only so much you can do with the same players. Things aren't going to change overnight. And I know, we spent a lot of money, and the answer is not to just keep chucking money at it. You've got to work with what you've got, and you've got to coach improvements out of them. But again, today, a massively alarming, complete lack of creativity. Can you name a single chance we had?
We didn't. Caliber, which was about
that's what. That was it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's literally
terrible. 90 minutes of football. It's just terrible, isn't it?
One set piece. I mean, the complete lack of. I mean, why do you think we lack so much creativity? Because you look at it and you think Mount's a creative player. He is creative. He gets. If you look at his goal and his assist numbers, they're good. He has an influence on the game. He was anonymous today. Sterling is a creative player. I mean, his numbers are unbelievable if you look at his numbers. And then Aubameyang, all right, he's not creative. But for me, the real problem is the midfield is letting us down big time. Yeah. We've known this for so long. We haven't invested. We've invested so much money in the squad, but we haven't improved the midfield since 2019. And the problems are glaringly obvious. It's so obvious. There's no creativity from the middle of the park. Absolutely none. The midfield today just got completely overrun. It was so easy for United in that first half an hour just to play through that midfield, play on the counter, and they were getting through us every single time. I mean, how much of a concern is the midfield for you? Because for me, that's what's going to let us down this season. Just a complete lack of a midfield, complete lack of investment in the midfield. We're lacking personnel so badly in there.
Yeah, and you talk about a spine of a team and the battles that must be won in midfield, and Chelsea just lack the most important and essential part of a game of football. So yes, we have a great outlets at fullback, which tends to be our main outlet of attack, and we have some creative players, like you mentioned there. Mason Mount is a creative player, but if you haven't got that link between defense and attack to kind of fill in the loose ends, it's not going to work. The transitions don't work. We haven't got a decent ball carrier who can really run at defenders, take on defenders, that killer pass. Kovacic, you could argue, does that a little bit. Loftus-Cheek does it a little bit, but there's a serious lack in quality and consistency in that middle of the park. And, until we address that issue, we've got the same problems where we're highly reliant on a few players, particularly defensive players. Reece James again, just one player that's missing, and I think Chelsea have always. So you can even go back to the Conte days. We've always been, we're not the best team to watch. We're not the most creative team. We're not a Man City. We're quite direct and we're quite effective in getting results when games are tight, and we don't create an awful lot. But I think that the shape doesn't necessarily help us in an attacking outlet. But then you've got to counteract that with, you look at the last 10 results, we've only conceded 3 goals in Potter's reign so far, and a lot of clean sheets as well. So he's definitely, shut up shop and tightened it up at the back, which has, been a huge positive. We should have really won the game 1-0 tonight again. Should have had another clean sheet, really.
I mean, we wouldn't have deserved it, but given the circumstances, we should have done.
Yeah. It's circumstantial. I think if we played that badly, you'd take a draw all day long. But it's the very fact that we've played shit and taken the lead with literally 5 minutes to go, and we've still not ended up winning the game, which should not happen, really.
No, it really shouldn't happen. But until we get to January, we can't address this midfield problem. But I think more of a pressing issue is the fact that Mateo Kovacic is playing through a knee injury. Let me just bring this up now. This is what Potter said after the game. Potter's obviously said Kovacic changed the game. Kova did change the game, and he's playing through a knee injury. I mean, how concerning is that for you, mate? Because we know that Kova's got a knee problem, and it doesn't require surgery, but it's probably on the cusp. I don't know if he should be playing as many minutes as he is. Playing for a knee injury doesn't sound promising, and sounds like it's only one bad tackle or one slight, knee going in the wrong direction by a millimeter or so, and it could be a big problem. I mean, we're already down to skin and bones in there anyway. We've literally got Kova, Jorginho, and Ruben in the middle of the park. This is really concerning.
Yeah, he's so important to us for the short term as well in terms of getting results. I thought he was one player that I wanted to start, but we know his history record is not great. His injury record, is not great. It's probably like a niggling injury that he's aware of, and he can feel it as he's playing. But it's not serious enough where he can't make an impact in some sort of game time capacity. Again, I thought when he came on, he did change it a little bit. We started to dominate the ball much better. And certainly towards the end of the game, we were the better side. There's no question about that. But again, we probably, as much as he's such a great player for us, we have to build and look beyond the midfielders that we've had for the past 4 or 5 years at the club. I mean, him, Kante, Jorginho, they've all been there for so long, and we've had no one really competing or testing them or thinking above them. I still think there are better midfielders out there than Kovacic that we could, acquire. But it's finding the right fit, isn't it? And Potter's hopefully going to be given time to be able to find that player. But again, you've got to look at that injury record and think, can we rely on this person?
Yeah, I do agree. I think Kovacic is clearly a game changer. He's someone that he probably is our best midfield player, our most important midfield player. But I do agree, Jorginho and Kante, I think it's probably time for them to move on. I wouldn't be against keeping Jorginho, but obviously depending on what and who we can bring in. But the midfield needs a serious revamp. We've got to almost start again there, I feel. It's got to be the number one priority. It's the one piece of the Chelsea team that has been missing for years and years now. We just haven't had a competitive midfield. And, you're going to get found out, particularly in the big games, where if you've not got a suitable midfield, then you're just going to get passed through. It's going to be also easy. The amount of time that Casemiro, Eriksen and whatnot had on the ball in that first half to just pick and pass their way through that midfield was outrageous. It was non-existent. I think Potter probably, I don't want to say he got it wrong today, because that's what the vast majority of Chelsea fans would have gone with in terms of system today. I don't think anyone would have said, let's start the game with a 4-3-3. They wouldn't have done. Well, some people would have done, but it would have been the minority rather than the majority. So I think it's fair to say that, it's easy to say that he got it wrong looking back at it. But the fact that what I really admire and respect is the fact that he realised it was wrong, and he took a bold move to change it, because a lot of managers would have just sat back and let that play out and might have changed it about the hour mark or something like that. So I respect that. But from the off, it was poor today. It was really, really poor. I mean, there's not really that much to say about the game other than the fact that it was shit. But let's push ahead to the penalty. For you, mate. I mean, Stonewall penalty, so obvious. It's just clumsy from McTominay in the box. He's got both arms all over him. What I would say is, though, that if you're going to give that, which is absolutely right, it is a penalty, then you're going to end up giving multiple penalties a game, because that sort of grappling happens in the box all the time. But maybe that's what it's going to take to constantly give penalties for it and penalise it will stop people doing it. But no doubt for you that that's a penalty.
No, not if you're going to go through what the Premier League thinks is a penalty in that scenario. I think that's given anywhere else on the pitch. He's clearly got two hands on him. You know, you could debate it. I'm sure there's plenty of Manchester United fans that think it's a bit soft, and I can see their argument as well, because if you're a defender, you're going to be probably fuming with that, because he does make the most of it. There's no question about that. But this is Premier League football. This is, you know, players are going to make the most of it and they get away with it. And we've been given, you know, some horrendous refereeing decisions in these actual, you know, in Manchester United Chelsea games before. You know, Maguire, I remember on the touchline going, you know, boots up against Batshuayi or someone. Azpilicueta, there was one where he was handled quite clearly in the box. Again, wasn't given. So it swings around and roundabouts. But for me, it's a penalty.
It's a stonewall. It's a stonewaller all day. I mean, you can't have both hands on someone in the box and just pull them down to the ground. You just can't do that. No. And he's got half a yard on him. It's clumsy from McTominay, but it is a stonewall penalty. And Jorginho steps up ice cold, and he is class from the spot. So he really is. He's so cool from the spot. One of the best penalty takers in world football, probably. And mate, you're thinking with about 2 minutes plus stoppages to go. I'm thinking, right, let's just hold on here. Let's get the win. It's kind of, you know, a smash and grab. We don't deserve the 3 points whatsoever, but let's just hold it out. But, you know, 6 minutes goes up on the board. And by the way, to just play 6 minutes when there was a goal and the celebrations in the stoppage time, to play just short of the 6 additional added minutes, there should have been at least 7 or 8 with the added on for the goal and the celebration. But that's by the by. But George, how disappointing a goal is that to concede from a Chelsea perspective? Because you saw United, they chucked McTominay up there. They are pushing their midfield players further forward. Obviously, they're taken off their attack-minded players. I guess they were kind of just happy to try and see it out for a draw. But having defended so well, kept 5 clean sheets in a row, moments away from a 6th consecutive clean sheet, in stoppage time to concede a goal like that is so disappointing.
I just never can put I just don't understand why you can play a normal game of football for 85 minutes, you know, players just playing in their normal positions, and all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes just turns into an utter shit fest, doesn't it? Where you play, everyone just drops back, and you end up just clearing the ball into, you know, back to give them possession. Everyone sits back. And it's just like a game of like basketball for the last 5 minutes. Why couldn't you just play a normal game for 9 minutes? Why do teams always in the last few minutes just sit back and try and take it? And that's like what Chelsea did. We got the 1-0 and we just decided we're gonna just sit a low block, and everything that comes our way, we're just gonna launch it outfield. They'll recycle possession on the halfway line and start again. And there was just such a lack of intensity to kind of shut down the ball. Shaw had a complete free cross. He could have still been there and had time to cross it. You know, Chilwell should not be beaten at the far stick from someone like Casemiro, to be honest with you. I thought the match analysis was spot on there.
And the header was in fairness to him, it was a very good header, but someone of Casemiro's stature, he's not tiny, but he's not the biggest bloke.
It's not Ronaldo, is he? I mean, if Ronaldo gets that header, you say fair enough.
He should never be winning that header in the box like that.
No. And, you know, but again, you know, you can't blame the person losing the header. You should stop the cross in the first place. And they don't. It's a great ball from Shaw, don't get me wrong. Kepa gets a great hand to it again, and you think, again, he's probably done a match-winning save there, and we just get, it's a fraction over the line, and it is a goal, but just so frustrating, because again, it's game management, isn't it? It's just a few minutes where we just need to hold out, and you think we've got away with it here because we've played so poorly, but we've got a great result, and you know, again, the curse against Manchester United continues.
I just don't get it. I just don't know when we're going to beat these mugs in the league. Like they're not even that good.
No,
I mean, they're a one-trick pony. They're a counter-attacking side, and if you stop the counter, then you basically stop their playing. And the fact, you know, that I thought in the first half they played well. They were better than us. Second half, we were much better than them. You know, the fact that they took off, you know, Eriksen, Anthony, I think they took off Sancho as well early in the second half. The fact they took off like most of their attacking outlets to try and sit up for the draw just goes to tell you what they'd come for. They came for a point, and they were hoping they might nick a 1-0 or something like that. So, I mean, it's frustrating, but they have been in good form. I know Tottenham were shit, and they have been shit in big games. They've beaten Tottenham, Liverpool, and Arsenal all at Old Trafford, which, despite what people might think of them, and we hate them, that has to be, respected, that they have actually beaten these sides. Regardless of how well they played against them, they have managed to beat those teams, and that has to be respected. But it's just frustrating because I do think we're better than them, but it was a real tough watch today. It was really tough. Let me just get to this here. Am I the only one who thinks GP is not impacting the Chelsea squad in a positive way? I can't understand why start Cucurella and Chile again. Yeah, it was awful against Villa, but what I would say is that Koulibaly was injured. So if you're going to go with a 3, the only other option is you play Aspie in the back 3 with Chalobah and Silva, and you have to play Ruben at right wing back. But he wanted to play Ruben in midfield today, so that was the only option we could have gone with. But I said that before the game, that I was concerned about that Cucurella Chilwell left side, because the last time we saw it against Villa, it was awful, and it wasn't very good again today. But I'm not blaming Potter on that, because the other options weren't there. I would have, I don't think Aspie was that bad today, so I would have preferred for him to start at right wing back than Ruben, just because the likes of Anthony or Rashford or whoever running down on Ruben from a defensive point of view is Aspie, despite his age, is a much better defender than Ruben is. So I haven't got an issue with that. But yeah, I mean, circumstantially, given the fact that we had those players out, like I don't have any problems with that. But it is mad how Potter's been here, and yet he's had so many key players injured for like the whole of his reign. No Fofana, Koulibaly missing games here and there, no Kante, no Reece James. These are hard things to deal with as a manager. I mean, I guess, George, the only positive before we get into the ratings is the fact that we are still unbeaten under Potter. So I guess that's a plus.
I lost you a little bit there, but yeah, you said it was we haven't lost under Potter yet.
Yeah, all good, mate. I'm just saying it's like how shit we were. It's the fact we are still unbeaten under Potter, and I was saying that he's not had the likes of Fofana, Koulibaly, Kante, Reece James. These are all big players of Chelsea. He's not had them available for the vast majority of his reign. So I think, yes, whilst this is very irritating, I don't think he could have done that much better so far.
No, I mean, they brought up the record before the game, and I was, looking through it, and I thought, you couldn't ask for a better start, could you? Really, as a manager going into a situation that's been quite turmoil for some time. And look, it's not his team, it's not his squad. He wants to bring players in himself. He hasn't had a chance to do that yet, and we also need to respect the fact of where we are at the moment in terms of a club. I think Chelsea fans have accepted that now. I think that the Champions League victory and the run in that kind of masked over what was kind of happening behind closed doors with a squad that needs a lot of investment and a fresh look and fresh eyes. And we're nowhere near Man City's levels, and we're not title challenging. So
no, we're not.
Top 4 is about where we are, and again, we were playing a game against a side that's a few points off us in the league, and shit game and a shit result, and that's kind of I know it was probably a result for us in if we're thinking about top 4, but if we're looking forward about the Chelsea of old and wanting to win things, you've got to win those games at home, but we've got to accept that we're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet, and the thing is, we've got big games coming up, like Arsenal in a couple of weeks at the Bridge on the 6th of November. That is massive game. Obviously, we won't touch on it too much now, but we've got to play a hell of a lot better in that game if we're going to get anything, because Arsenal are much better than Man United at the moment. So that's gonna be that's gonna be the next big test. We've got tricky games coming up. Salzburg away in the Champions League. We've got obviously Brighton away next weekend before Arsenal, City in the Cup. There's big games coming up, and things have got to improve. But I think, this game in isolation was really disappointing, and the kind of the issues of old occurred again, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. It really isn't. But I think there's nothing to be positive about today, but there is stuff to be positive about overall, because this is going to take a long time to fix, and until the midfield gets sorted out, we aren't going to play realistically any better. But let's get into some ratings then. Guys, before we get into these ratings, please keep smashing the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. We're on the road to 2K subscribers. Progress has slowed down a little bit recently, so let's pick it back up again. If you're tuning in now and you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Mate, I've got it lined up as a 5 here. I couldn't be asked to change it to a back 4, but we know it changed to a 4, so we're just going to leave it like this on the screen. Let's start in the goal with Kepa. I thought again today, mate, I thought he was really good. He almost keeps that header out, but there's not really too much he can do about it. But he makes a couple of great saves to keep us in it, particularly that one from Rashford. So all in all, mate, we were impressed with his performance. Can't really criticise him for the goal. He didn't really do anything else wrong. And there was a nice bit of play in the second half where he came running out and to get the ball near sort of the far side. He beats the United player and they start sort of passing it about. That was quite skillful, quite ballsy. Could have easily gone wrong. What did you make of him today? I thought a solid 7, really, if I'm being honest. I thought I was impressed again.
Yeah, he seems like he's grown in confidence, hasn't he? Like nothing's going to beat him. And yes, something did beat him today, but he still made a fantastic effort to tip it onto the post. It's just unlucky that it's hit that type of angle where it's come off the inside of the post, and even then he still nearly recovers it off the line. No, didn't really put it wrong today. Closed down his box really, really well, particularly like you said, that Rashford chance where he tried to clip it over him, shut it down really well. Just a different player now. And I still think he keeps Mendy well out. So yeah, solid.
Yeah, I'd agree, mate. I'll tell you what, let's move on to Trevor Chalobah. We still haven't lost in a game that Chalobah started, which is a fantastic stat. I mean, it's quite mad, really. But mate, I thought he was really good again today. I really did. I mean, he almost scored when he hit the bar with that header. I thought defensively he was very, very good. And before I get your thoughts on it, I just want to mention something which I know is not going to happen, but I think it should strongly be considered. Why should he not be in the England squad for the World Cup?
Oh, bloody hell.
Why?
Yeah, I guess you could make a case for that. I mean, have we seen enough of him? I don't know. I think we're in the England squad. We're blessed with defenders. We're definitely blessed with defenders. I mean, whether in that position or not, I don't know. But yeah, I suppose he could. You know, he's making.
I mean, I'm not saying he should start, but surely he's part of
squad.
Surely he's good enough at the moment to be part of the squad.
I mean, if it was me and you, I'd say we'd agree, but Southgate's probably not going to put him in.
No, of course he's not. But I do think the way that he's playing, he warrants being thought of in the England conversation. You know, the fact that he's playing regularly for Chelsea now, he's playing really well, he's playing to a high level, and he's not even part of the conversation when England squads are spoken about or when defenders are spoken about. I find that quite strange. But anyway, back to him today. What were your thoughts on him? I thought a really strong game today. I was really impressed with him again.
Yeah, very mature performance. One of the more mature performances I've seen from him. And I think he could be very much in that future setup as a starting player for Chelsea. Kind of take that Aspie role of the centre right, which is I think he could do very well. Yeah, he's showing his quality and that he's learning every game that he plays. And I'm getting more and more confident that he can mix it at the top level for us and be a regular. So I think he's certainly better than what we had before with Christensen. I think he's got that overall package that Christensen perhaps didn't have. Yeah, we're still going to expect mistakes and everything else. We have to expect that as he develops. But no, you know, this was a big game for him, and he's shown that he can mix it.
Mate, I'm going to give him a 7. I think a 7.5 is fair. I thought he was really good. I did really enjoy his performance. Let's move on to Thiago Silva. If I'm being honest, I don't want to say I didn't notice him that much, but I sort of didn't notice him as much as I perhaps normally do in a game. I don't think he didn't really have an awful lot to do. I thought he defended well, but I don't think he did anything stand out today. I guess it was just kind of I don't want to say average performance because it wasn't average. It was still good, but do you know what I mean? It wasn't. There was nothing. There was nothing bad, but there was nothing like, oh my god, he was unbelievable today. Do you just think kind of just a fairly run of the mill performance, really?
I totally get what you're saying. It's almost like he didn't have the glitz and the glamour that he usually has, but that might be a sign that actually we are turning a corner and perhaps, you know, on the one hand, you can say Thiago Silva's, unbelievable, but is it right that perhaps we always talk about how good he is in games? Surely that shows, that perhaps rings alarm bells that we're praising our defenders for defending well, when really, if we're dominating games, they shouldn't have a lot to do. So hopefully we're turning a corner in that we're not talking as much about Thiago Silva, because we shouldn't. He shouldn't be so exposed and having to do this unbelievable last-ditch defending that he shows us game in, game out. But he was a bit quiet today. Didn't have a lot to do. I thought we got caught out a few times being too high. But I mean, we can't criticise Thiago Silva. No. I mean, he gels that whole back line together, and without him, again, we struggle to get points on the board. So
I think
a quieter game. Yeah,
I've got a 6 point. I've got a 6.5.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. Are we going to give Cucurella a rating? I mean, he did start, but I mean, we'll give him a rating anyway. I've got to be honest. I didn't think he wasn't great. I didn't think he was absolutely awful. I mean, I can't really remember too much what he did, but I mean, what did you make of him? I mean, and at the moment, he's going for a bit of a tough spell at the moment because he was subbed at half time against Villa, where he started. Although having said that, he has started the last 3 games. So I like it swings and roundabouts. He's being picked to start, but against Villa he was hooked at half time because he was poor. He was hooked at the hour mark against Brentford, and then he was hooked at 35 minutes a day. Perhaps 35 minutes a day was not because he was shit. It was because it was for tactical reasons. But are you a little bit concerned, just sort of in the very recent past, that he's not looked as good as when he first came in?
Yeah, but it's frustrating because there's kind of we love things about Chilwell and we love things about Cucurella, and they complement each other well, but they also have bits that you wish that they could swap over. I think Cucurella has a lot more intensity about his game, and he's probably one of those that when the game's stretched, he can really attack. And
do you think this left centre back? I'm not saying he can't play it because he has played it. He's played it at Brighton, but he's predominantly probably a better left wing back. Do you think this perhaps doesn't quite suit him as well, or he still needs a bit more time to adapt to it, playing it for Chelsea, because it's very different, I guess, playing it for Chelsea than it is playing it for Brighton. He's getting used to playing with new players, new partnership. But do you think that this perhaps isn't quite suiting him as well at the moment, playing in that position?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think he and you can see it in the way he plays. I think he thinks that he's a bit indecisive and a bit uncomfortable playing that position. He's not quite sure sometimes where he's supposed to be. Sometimes he gets caught too high up. Sometimes he's too deep. Tries to be too forceful with the pass initially and gets caught out and lost in possession. So it's a tough one for him. And again, the pressures of playing for a club of this size is different because the expectations are different. The mistakes are more highlighted. We've got more possession of the ball. He's probably used to more counter-attack play. It's a tough one, but I prefer to see him at wing back, and I just think we should do more of what we did with Chilwell and Alonso and just switch now and again rather than try and get them both in. But like you said, Potter might not have at the moment the option to do that. So it's a tough one, but it's not going to be a high rating because he didn't.
No, I'll probably give him. I was going to give him an average 5.
Yeah.
I think an average 5 as well. We'll come to cover later. Let's move out to Azpilicueta. Getting quite a few minutes in the side at the moment, Aspi. I don't think there's really any surprise that he was going to start today. I tipped him to start. I would have started him in this position anyway, because I think Ruben's more important in midfield, particularly given Kovacic's knee problem. Can't play too many minutes, really. And the fact he was meant to be rested against Brentford, but ended up playing 15 minutes, and only getting 15 minutes because Gallagher was ill. I mean, what did you make of Aspi today? I mean, not great going forward for me, but I don't think he got caught out defensively too many times. I don't think Rashford or Anthony necessarily got the better of him on too many occasions. I mean, I don't think he was amazing, but he was just kind of okay. And I guess at the moment, he's the only option we've got, essentially, unless you play Ruben there, because Sterling and Pulisic playing wing back just doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. What were your thoughts on Aspi today? And it just goes again to show that area of the squad with Reece James missing is just a nightmare.
It's just the performance that I expect from Azpilicueta. just solid, consistent, but you know his frailties. I mean, he's not going to offer anything going forward. There's no pace on that right hand side, but then he's very experienced in being able to read the game very well and doesn't often get caught out. And he's a very well rounded professional. But when he's in the team, you're going to lack the intensity and the quality going forward, which we have with James. And that is going to be a weak link. It just is. But I still think he's a valuable member of the squad, and I still rate him. I still think he can produce performances that are important defensively. But at the end of the day, he's there because we have our best player in that position who would be starting missing, and that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I don't think he was bad today. I'm going to give it. I think probably about 5.5 is fair. I don't think he was terrible at all. I really don't. I'm just going to make this a bit smaller so it looks all right. Let's get the RLC in there. What did you make of RLC today, Gaffer, in the midfield? I felt at times there was one occasion where he was a bit sloppy giving it away, and it almost caused us a problem. But compared to how well he's been playing recently, this I don't think was one of his better games. But again, I felt it was fairly solid. I mean, I think he broke up play well. I mean, he had that good bit of play in the first half where he wins the ball back, he beats the man, he wins the ball back or something, and he gets that header and knocks it forward towards Aubameyang, and then puts in a dead cross. But I mean, what do you think of Ruben today? I mean, it wasn't outstanding. It hasn't been as good as what he's played in previous weeks, but I don't think he was terrible today.
It wasn't terrible, but it's just it's disappointing performance for me because I think he's really come on the last couple of games and really shown us that he is potential to start. But then when you get presented with an opportunity to play a really big game and make your mark again, it's that question mark on can he mix it with the very best when you're playing around a midfield of Eriksen, Casemiro, and the like of very experienced professionals. Not that he came off second best, but I think you could see the difference in quality and what he's got left to do in his playing development. And it will come. I have no doubts about that because there's some qualities that he has that those players like Casemiro and Eriksen don't have. But I think you could see that Manchester United dominated the midfield today because, Ruben Loftus-Cheek isn't perhaps the more completed player. Out of all those midfield players, he's probably the least completed midfield player. So. Disappointed because I really wanted to see him take this game by the scruff of the neck, but it's going to happen, and I'm not going to slate him too much because I think he has done fantastically well this season.
I'll give him a 6. I think a 6 is fair. Jorginho, I mean, obviously he scored the penalty, fantastic. He then commits a tactical foul, which is what he should have done a number of times earlier in the season. I think he just hacks down Alanga, takes the booking. He knows he's not going to beat him to stop a dangerous counter. That's good experience play there. Yes, he scores the pen, but I mean, he wasn't terrible. But again, like Ruben, this just wasn't, it just wasn't great, really. I mean, it was tough. It was tough for Jorginho today. I mean, I can't really remember anything terrible he did, but other than score the pen, which was obviously a very important contribution, there wasn't an awful lot from him today.
I mean, maybe I just don't, I haven't really got that real detailed insight, but I just think he's just a bit of a dead player. Just the position you're playing in the middle of the park, just like he does something that I think any professional player could do, just 5 yards. And I know that might sound incredible, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe I haven't got the eye for details in football. Maybe he does do things that I'm completely like, that's special. But for me, he plays 5-yard passes, moves at the rate of a sloth, and creates nothing going forward. And maybe breaks up the play now and again. But I think when you're playing him in the middle of the park, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, can you expect anything more than a draw and lack of chances?
Probably not. No.
So that's what I'm saying. Like Chelsea, like we've said, need to. You look at that as a pair, and you just think, it's not good enough for what we're trying to aspire to be. And that's no criticism of him, and that's no criticism of. I think if he's playing, just in front of a back line and he's like a sweeper kind of player, that's fine. But I think when you're centre of the park, you need a bit more about you. Like you need to be able to drive.
I do.
Doesn't have that.
No, I totally agree, mate. I mean, And again today, obvious problems in midfield. No Dennis Zakaria again. How bad is this guy in training? This guy must be. This guy is either a complete wanker and he doesn't get picked because his attitude's terrible, which I think is very unlikely because of what I've read of interviews that he's done. He comes across as a great guy, or he's just absolutely terrible at football, which again I don't think is true. Why does he get no minutes? Like why? I just don't get it. You could play him as a holding midfield player, and then it frees up maybe Cover and Mount or Cover and Ruben. Why again Zakaria no minutes? Mate, honestly, I don't think this guy's ever going to play for Chelsea. I really don't.
Mate, it's a great question. I'd love someone to maybe throw a curveball in a press conference and say.
This is what I mean. Why are no journos asking why Zakaria's playing no minutes?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. Maybe you can ask him one day.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll ask him. Well, it'll probably be a bit late because he would have fucked off back to you. But I mean, do you understand that though? It's another really odd one. Obviously we're not quite sure who brought him in or whose idea it was to bring him in. But as a manager, Potter's a very intelligent guy. He's not stupid. He must be seeing something that he doesn't like. But I mean, are you surprised that Zakaria just can't get on the pitch, given how many games we're playing and given how short of bodies we are in midfield?
I'm surprised because we there's no harm in trying it because we lack so much creativity. It's so obvious that we lack creativity, so why not try it? But then I also understand that he's not going to get selected for a game at home against Manchester United. He's just not. With the experience you've got, regardless of how we think Jorginho plays, he's still an outstanding professional who's very experienced. And, again, today did nothing but scored a goal. But you'd want no one else on that pen. And he's bottom of that list. If you look at all the midfielders we've got, he's probably is bottom because he's unknown. Now, managers are always going to have favourites. They're always going to have players that they prefer and don't prefer. He didn't bring him in, so he has no, and no one has the given right. And if we were the manager of Chelsea Football Club, there would be certain players that you probably pick every game, and some players that you never pick. And that's just how it is. You can only pick 11. But I am surprised because I just don't understand. It's like we said about the opposite about how Kai Havertz gets so many minutes. He must be unbelievable in training to get what he gets because he's fucking shit.
He got no minutes today, which was
quite fucking right as well.
But I mean, back to Jorginho. I think a 6 point. I'll give him a point. I'll give him a 0.5 just because he scored the pen.
Just bang average. Like, when have we ever given Jorginho like an 8 or a 9? Just doesn't.
There was one game, I think maybe one of the Milan games. He was class, possibly. I can't remember. There was one game where I did actually might have given him an 8.5 or a 9 because he was outstanding. It was fairly recently, but just wanted to quickly say one thing on Kovacic again. I won't bring it up on the screen because I'll have to cancel the lineup off it, but. Potter on why Kovacic hasn't been starting. He said he's been nursing his knee all season pretty much. And you look at the schedule, it's impossible for him to start all the games. We've planned for him to have less time, but things have conspired against us. So the fact that he's been nursing a knee injury all season, it's a strange one. It really is. It's very problematic that because you obviously it's not bad, but it can't be great. It must be holding him back to some degree. And the sooner that gets sorted, the better. But we can't afford for him to go and have a surgery and miss time because we've got no one else. But he came on today, cover after 35 minutes. And George, you have to say, bro, that he changed the game, didn't he? He did. He added energy in there. We looked a lot more balanced. There was far less time on the ball for Casemiro and Eriksen in that midfield. They had far less space as well. And he made a big difference, didn't he? I mean, were you impressed with him today? I mean, I've say that, I respect that he's a very good midfield player and he's very important to the side. But my one big thing, and people say he's perhaps not in there to do that, and I sort of get that, but he needs to contribute a lot more in terms of assists or goals. He barely ever scores, and he hardly gets any assists either. It doesn't make him a bad player because, he's not in a position where, that's really important, but you should really be chipping in with a few from midfield. And the fact we've got no goals or no real creativity in midfield is a massive problem. We've had Lampard and Ballack in the past. We've had players that get goals and get numbers from midfield. And at the moment, we just got no players in midfield that get numbers at all, unless it's Jorginho from the penalty spot. So whilst Cover was really good today, I am slightly concerned in the bigger picture that he doesn't contribute enough in terms of goals and assists.
Yeah, completely agree. And I don't know why it's such a huge ask to say when we talk about defenders. Let's talk about fullbacks and how much that's changed, and that you almost have to be a winger as well as a defender. Well, surely as a midfield player, you also have to contribute going forward and
Oh,
going backwards as much.
100%.
I don't know why we let off just because we play a certain style and because maybe they're not suited to that. You're still playing in the middle of the park. So you look at Manchester United's midfield today, all of those players could contribute with goals. And one did today. And he didn't have a great game, but managed to pop up with a goal. And Kovacic can do that. I mean, look at that outrageous one he scored against Liverpool last season.
Yeah, it was
he has
unreal.
got it in the locker. And I'm not saying, any professional footballer can score a great goal, but he's got. I know it's not natural for him. He's not like Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard. He's not going to, have shots from 30 yards. But we need. It's not an outrageous thing to say. Well, we expect that a little bit more, just a little bit more. Yeah, and he did change the game, and it's unfortunate that obviously what's come from Potter is that he's nursing a knee injury from the start of the season, which is going to hinder him because he's almost being forced to play through the plane. Play through the plane. Play through the pain. It's been a long one. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but he improved the midfield. But again, no goals in there. So what do you expect?
No, I mean, I thought it was good today. I think a 7 is fair. I thought he was good. Yeah, I'll give him. Let's go 7. Right, let's move on to Chile quickly, and then we'll rattle through the rest of these. Mate, what did you make of Chile today? I thought defensively okay. Quiet though. I don't think he offered an awful lot going forward. There was one very good cross he put into the box, but other than that, I don't think he was that great today. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't really offering what we need, and particularly with Reece James missing, like whoever's playing left wing back is even more important because you're not really getting anything down the other side through Aspie. So it's even more vital that whoever's playing there really pushes on and tries to contribute. I just don't think Chile contributed enough today. I felt he was okay up against the likes of Anthony and Rashford, but I mean, he's still finding his feet again. It's difficult to come back from an ACL. And there's always the chance that you might not get back to the level you were at before. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but you've got to be realistic and accept that this could happen. Chilwell may not get back to the level he was pre-injury. You just don't know. And I think you've got to accept and be prepared that could possibly happen. I'm by no means writing him off right now at all. Something he's a top player and he's got a lot to offer, but it's going to be a slow burner for him to get back to top form. But it wasn't terrible today, but I just think a bit average, really. How did you see what he did?
Yeah, and again, when we did the England squads a couple of weeks ago, he's the reason why I picked Shaw. I think Shaw showed him up today, unfortunately to say. And I know Chilwell was, playing out of this world in that Champions League run, and then obviously got the injury after it in the season afterwards and struggled. And he has struggled to get back to it. He's just half a yard off, and at this level, if you're half a yard off, it looks so blatantly obvious that you're half a yard off. But again, people, be careful what you wish for. I think, Alonso today could have been more useful going forward with a better ball delivery. Let him go. Not saying that Chilwell wouldn't be a starter, but he's just, I don't know. I feel like he's struggling a little bit with the pace of it still and finding his feet. But we've got to give him time. He's still our best left back by a mile.
Yeah, no, I think he is.
I still really rate him. I still think he's class. Yeah. It's just that's the reason why he's not going to be in the England starting 11 because of he's just he got shown up by Shaw, who I think Chilwell still is better than Shaw, but today I think showed where they are in terms of their performances at the moment.
Yeah, I'll give him a 6. I think a 6 is probably fair. I think that's about right. I think he was probably a shade better than Aspie. Before we get into the front three, just quickly get to a few things in the chat. What's this? On Zakaria, Potter said Dennis has conducted himself fantastically well with the group, fighting for the team, being really professional in training and waiting for his opportunity. I'm sure that will come soon. Well, it doesn't look like that's coming soon.
League Cup, probably.
No, well, I don't think he'll start that game either. I think if he's going to play, I think providing we beat Salzburg, I think he'll play in that dead rubber Champions League game at home to Zagreb. And if he doesn't play in that, then he's never playing for Chelsea. It's as simple as that. He just won't. There is no talk of anything. He's an important member of the team. He's been patient and waiting for his chance. I mean, yeah, the gaffer's obviously said that, but it just looks like that he's not going to get that opportunity. What's this? Cover needs a 10 in front of him and a 6 behind him. Too much responsibility. Yeah, I agree. I think he does need players around him. And what's this here? CR7. Yeah, he wasn't there today. To be honest, mate, luckily he wasn't there because I think he would have come on today. And I think it's the sort of game that you could have seen him causing a few problems in that. So luckily for us, he wasn't involved. But let's move into that front three, George. And again, Mason Mount's been in fantastic form, the last month or so. Wasn't so good against Brentford, really. But I thought today he was... I've got to be honest, mate. He was anonymous. I'm not like criticizing him. He's been fantastic for the club and whatnot this season so far. Well, the last few games anyway. But performance level wasn't there today. If we're talking about this performance in isolation, I felt he was poor. If I'm being totally honest, he didn't really offer anything at all. Did you see it the same way?
Yeah, criticism when it's due, and we've given him lots of positives, but today, again, you can admire sometimes the fact that he's making clearances and almost playing at right back at times. Sometimes he was stuck right in that corner where at the right back situation, but he shouldn't be there. It's as simple as that. Like, he's an attacking player. He should be carrying the ball, taking on players 1v1, and I don't know whether he lacks maybe that inner confidence that he can take on those players, but he should be causing way more problems, and he just doesn't. And frustrating, because it's one of those games, again, you rely on someone like him to be a game changer, and he just, again, was a bit anonymous today, and it's a bit of a scratch the head moment, because you know what he's got in his locker, but he just doesn't show it on a consistent basis. And again, he's let himself down, I think, tonight.
No, I would agree. I mean, what do you think, mate? Do you think a 4's harsh?
Yeah, well,
he just offered nothing.
I don't think he did. I think he played a right back most of the game.
I'll give him a 4.
I know that's incredibly harsh, but
he offered nothing.
So much more from him.
But he didn't offer anything. He didn't offer anything at all. I think that's fair. I mean, and to be honest, we're going to the other side and arguably offered even less.
Worse. Yeah.
Sterling today, I think possibly with Aubameyang, maybe, or maybe not quite. Sterling was the worst player on the pitch today for Chelsea. He was, in my opinion, he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. I know we were really excited for him coming in, and he started well. He's got 6 goal and assists this season, but for someone coming in, you expect a lot more. And I know it's a new team, but he knows the Premier League inside out. And I mean, do you think he's perhaps a victim now, maybe, of having to be the main man in the attack, whereas before he was very much a piece of something unbelievable at City, and he knew he was going to get the chances. He knew he would score eventually, because when you've got the likes of De Bruyne, Mahrez, Foden, etc., creating opportunities for you, eventually you're going to get the chance to score. Whereas at Chelsea, he's very much the main man, and he's got to almost make things happen himself. Do you think he's perhaps maybe struggling a little bit with that responsibility? Because I'm not saying we were ever going to get the Sterling that we had at City, but he looks a different player at the moment. He just isn't influencing games at all.
No, so it's a really good point, mate. I think there's a point to be said about players being world-class in their own right. And then there's also, you've got to have a team chemistry in the way a team plays. And that does, have a correlation with their return. I mean, we're not being outrageous in saying if Haaland was in this Chelsea lineup, he's not scoring the goals that he's scoring. Like, that's not an outrageous comment.
No, he's not.
He wouldn't get the service that he gets as Man City. Man City have at least 8 to 10 shots on target, at least have 80% possession. Chelsea just, Sterling has to carry the ball almost from his own half, nothing in front of him, and we expect him to just dribble past players and do everything. I think he looked a bit lazy today, I've got to be honest. He wasn't shutting down, he wasn't chasing balls, he wasn't risking, he wasn't taking any sort of responsibility to try and make something happen. But it is harder for him. We're not going. We all said we certainly said that we're not going to get the Sterling that we got at Man City.
No, we're not.
Because he's just not going to get that sort of return. We expect more, because obviously he's still by far our best creative player that we've got. But that's just because our bar is so low from what we've had previously with Werner and the like, and Havertz. Can't get much worse. But yeah, really, really poor today. Probably is worse in a Chelsea shirt since he arrived. And
I mean, just on this here, I've always said this about Sterling, that he's needed a lot of chances to score a goal. And I said it a number of times at City, because you're always winning games, and because if you miss a couple of chances and the team wins 4-0, your missed chances are not spoken about at all. Or if you miss a couple of chances, you know you're going to get other opportunities to score. So you might miss 3, but you score on the 4th occasion and no one speaks about them. At Chelsea, you don't get those opportunities. So you missing chances looks much worse because you're not getting the same amount of chances to put it right. And, you know, I agree. I think he does play better down the right-hand side when he cuts in and bends it in. We've seen him do that a number of times with City. But I just feel that, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I feel that like he was very much, his deficiencies weren't exposed at City because of the world-class operation, the team that he was playing in. That made him look a lot better because he's got better players around him, more chances being created for him, more chances, more goals. It's just the law of averages. Whereas at Chelsea, he's not got the same quality of player around him, so he's not going to score as many opportunities. And so the fact that his finishing is poor, and it is, but the fact he got so many chances at City, it was kind of overlooked. And I think at Chelsea, we're now seeing the fact that despite how good a player Sterling is, his finishing's not very good. Let's be perfectly honest about it. His level of finishing is poor. But I mean, in terms of a rating, I'm going to go over 3. I know that sounds harsh, but I think he was the worst. He was the worst player on the pitch. Shocking today. Let's round it out then, mate. Aubameyang. I mean, not really much better today. I think he had one opportunity where he perhaps could have gone with his head in the first half, but he didn't. He tried to control it. But other than that, I think anonymous again today. We know what Aubameyang is. You know, he's a penalty box striker. He's a bit of a poacher. You've got to give him the service for him to do something. But I mean, I don't know. For me, the jury's out a little bit. Like if he create the chances, he's shown he can score. But in big games like this, he very much felt he's a passenger today. The game kind of just drifted him by. I mean, we know this is a short-term fix at the top end of the pitch, but I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily the answer, really. I mean, what are your thoughts on him today and just in general? Because he's looked much better since the mask is off and he's fit. He's scored a few goals, but I mean, I don't know. This is not a long-term answer. We know that, but I'm not sure how useful he's going to be this season. I know that sounds ridiculous because I think he will score goals, but I just don't know really how much he's going to assist us. And I think Broja should be starting. I think Broja should be starting more games.
I think Broja should be starting. I think I know it's hard, and the one thing I'd say about Aubameyang is it must be hard for him as well, knowing that he was bought in by a certain individual who was literally gone the next day, and he probably is fully aware that he's not in Potter's plans long term, and that he's come on a promise that he's going to work with Thomas Tuchel and have a relationship, and then that relationship is gone within 24 hours, and he's had to now adapt. And being a professional that he is, I'm sure he's doing his utmost and his best, and he will, like you said, because he's a quality goal scorer, he will get goals, but he's not the answer. He's going to be a classic washed up Chelsea number 9 who's had his best years behind him, and isn't the answer, and not Potter's answer by any stretch. But we're desperate. We haven't got any other options, so we're going to have to go with it. And again, a difficult night tonight because no service. Expected probably to do too much to number 9.
Do you notice that he spent? I found that he spent a lot of his time in that left-hand channel. Today, like
he's such a classic Chelsea striker thing, isn't it? We've seen it so. I mean, do you remember when Avram Grant used to play Anelka like wide left? It used to drive me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, Aubameyang has played there in his career, but when he was much younger, you know, he just looked, as it says in the chat here, like he just looked a bit slow. I just think he is not as quick as he used to be. And you're not when you get older. You are going to lose that pace. You're not going to be as quick as you were a few years ago. But we want Aubameyang in the box. You don't want him out wide, because if he's out wide, who's in the box? No one. You want him as close to the goal as possible. But I mean, it was a tricky afternoon for him. Do you think he was better than Sterling?
Maybe slightly, because he had a couple of half chances that he was in the right position for and just didn't take them, but marginally 3.5, I'd probably say.
Yeah, we go 3.5. I mean, we've got a point, but you look at that, and fuck it out.
We were. I think we were lucky to get. You know, both teams were shit.
Yeah. Both teams were utter dog shit tonight. They were. It is as simple as that. And I think we're lucky to get away with a point today. I think we really were. I think if United were a bit more clinical, they could have probably won that game 2-0 quite easily.
Definitely.
I think we were lucky today. We got a penalty. We didn't create any chances in terms of scoring, just that Chalobah one. But we've got to improve. But I mean, George, we move on to Tuesday night. I think we've got Salzburg away in the Champions League, another massive game. We've got Arsenal coming up as well in the league. We've got the Carabao Cup campaign starts away at Man City. The games are coming thick and fast still up to the World Cup. I mean, obviously you're away next week, so I just wanted to quickly get your thoughts. How do you see Chelsea looking in the run for the rest, sort of for the rest of the fixtures up to the World Cup? We've got some big games coming up. The Arsenal game's massive. We've got a difficult game against Brighton away next weekend. Do you think we're kind of in good shape at the moment, or do you think you're concerned? I know it's we haven't lost under Potter yet. I think 7 games unbeaten, but the level of performance is not there. I know it's always points over performances, but how are you feeling heading into the last few games before the World Cup?
It's starting to tail off a little bit, but you would expect that. We've got some big tests coming up, and that will probably shape our conversations coming up. But we are coming around to that Christmas period, mate, and we know what we like with Chelsea at Christmas, which the wheels tend to fall off. So I just hope that this Christmas is slightly different.
Well, we've got no Christmas period, but yeah, obviously, I mean,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're starting to get to that time where the Potter effect's kind of the initial impact's going to tail off, and we've got games coming thick and fast, and all the cup competitions are going to start, and then it'll be interesting. I think with the World Cup element thrown in, how you probably expect a better international tournament overall because they're fitter, but then how is it going to impact the Premier League having a break? Remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm not concerned. I think if you look at the results that we've had so far, if you looked at them, you'd probably think we've actually overachieved considering the position that we're in. I think that's not outrageous to say. You look at the results, lots of clean sheets. Yeah, nothing to set the world alight, but Potter's been here 5 minutes. I've said it to you in private. I wouldn't be surprised if Potter's gone in 12 months, because that's just how Chelsea roll. This whole bollocks about him being the 6 year is nonsense, mate. I think if Chelsea start to put in 5-6 really poor results, I think again questions start to be asked, and that's just the way it is. But I hope that's not the case. But we've got some big games. I mean, Arsenal's massive.
Huge. The Arsenal game is absolutely massive.
And at the moment, they're gonna beat us. At the moment, I think we'd be very lucky. Obviously, Champions League, it's important we qualify, and the League Cup's just annoying because we've drawn we've pretty much drawn the team that wins that cup every year. So it's going to be tough. But I think our conversation, it could go either way in a couple of weeks' time. Who knows?
Who knows, mate? Who knows? But that seems like a good point to round out, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it as always. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. It's great having your thoughts, great interacting with you. So really appreciate it. I'll be back on probably Monday night, actually. I think we're playing Salzburg Tuesday. So I'll be back Monday with a preview to the Salzburg game. But until then, guys, disappointing for the Chelsea today. Still unbeaten under Potter, though. So we march on to the Champions League. Let's secure that top spot. We'll be back. Things will improve. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. On your way out, please do smash the likes, run those likes up, smash the subscribe button as well. It really helps us out. If you're tuning in now and you're not subscribed, please do that. And I'll be back, as I said, Monday. But yeah, until then, guys, up the Potter, up the Chelsea. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and catch you soon.